If you are anything like most of the marketing leaders I talk to, you're feeling one of two things right now. You're either feeling genuinely energized, like maybe this framework that we provided connects AI to actual pipeline growth, and you're feeling like, hey, you can get started, or it's just makes you feel even more overwhelmed. And, okay, this is all great. And you're thinking to yourself, where do I actually get started? So this episode's for both of you, because what I want to do today is to bring this series to a close in a way that's helpful and actionable, not just a recap, but a clear path forward, something that you can act on. So let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Health Tech Marketing Show. I'm your host, Adam Chirinas. I'm the CEO of Health Launchpad. That's one of the presenting sponsors of this show. Health Launchpad is the pipeline growth company for B2B healthcare. As always, a big thank you to you for listening. And if you haven't already done so, please hit the follow button or the subscribe button in whatever app you're using. It makes a real difference to us. And we're always excited to see our base of listeners growing. And a big thank you, as always, to the wonderful people at Healthcare Now Radio. They're the 24/7 healthcare-only online radio network, and they also have a podcast syndication service. We're really grateful to Roberta and Carol for everything you do, and you've really helped extend the reach of this show, and we're very grateful to you for that. If you've been listening to this series on AI pipeline growth, guess what? You've made it to the end. Congratulations. If you missed prior episodes, there's a link below to all of the other ones. So far, 5 episodes. So this is number 6. And over those 5 episodes, we've covered 4 pillars. And I'm going to go back over these as a reminder in a little bit. By the way, if you listen very carefully to the first episode, I said there'd be 7 episodes, and I don't actually have a 7th episode yet. I'm going to actually wait and come back and do that later. The plan was for that to be a bunch of case studies on AI pipeline growth. And to be honest, I'm actually in search of these. There really aren't that many of them around. And the ones that I have, like the amazing stories of what's going on at Inovalon, I've kind of covered in depth. So my plan is to come back at a later date when I feel I've got a good body of stories to share, hopefully multiple episodes. So a bit of a call out here is if you think you've got a good story about how you're using AI to grow your pipeline, not content, right? Just to sort of something that goes beyond using it for content and research, ping me below. There's my email. You can email me at adam@healthlaunchpad.com and let me know. Maybe I'll have you on the show. Now, if you are anything like most of the marketing leaders I talk to, you're feeling one of two things right now. You're either feeling genuinely energized, like maybe this framework that we provided connects AI to actual pipeline growth, and you're feeling like, hey, you can get started, or it just makes you feel even more overwhelmed. And, okay, this is all great. And you're thinking to yourself, where do I actually get started? So this episode's for both of you, because what I want to do today is to bring this series to a close in a way that's helpful and actionable, not just a recap, but a clear path forward, something that you can act on. So let's get into it. Let me take a few minutes just to remind you of what we've covered, because I want it all to be in your head as I talk through what to do next. We started in the first episode with the gap. It's the frustrating, stubborn reality that most of us in healthcare technology, and that's over 70% in our research, are using AI really tactically for things like content creation, for research, maybe some automation, but most people are not really doing that yet. And I get it. It's not actually that intuitive. There's nothing really wrong with being in that position. But the problem is that the C-suite expectation is that we're all going to use AI to grow the top line, to grow pipeline. And very few companies have cracked the code on that. And that's what this series has been about, really. The second episode in the series was on the first pillar, which is signal intelligence. That's the ability to see what matters earlier by interpreting patterns across accounts and people over time, not just reporting individual clicks. The key idea is early pattern recognition beats perfect in healthcare, and AI is good at interpretation and to a certain extent helping you with prediction about who could become a potential customer. The second episode in the series was about orchestration, which is what happens after you see the signal. So it's prioritization, routing, however you pronounce it, coordinating a multiple persona response across these complex health system accounts that we all deal with. The point is that orchestration isn't about moving leads faster. It's about choosing which play to run and when. The next episode was execution and acceleration. This is where I had the brilliant Chris Marion from Inovalon on the show. And the line that he said, which I keep coming back to from that conversation, is this one: reduce time to first draft, not automate to final send. AI shortens the cycle. A human still owns the output. That's the right posture, especially in our industry. The last pillar was governance and learning. And this is the one that I think surprises people the most, because governance isn't just the compliance chapter. Done right, it's actually a quality multiplier. You govern for substance, build a knowledge foundation that reflects how your buyers actually think. And guess what? Better marketing follows as a direct result. That's the framework. 4 pillars: signal intelligence, orchestration, execution and acceleration, governance and learning. And now the question is, what do you actually do with this? Here's the thing I want to say directly before we get into the how. This is a big system. The complete picture, all 4 pillars working together, feeding each other, compounding over time. That's not something you're going to be able to build in a quarter. It may take you a couple of years to do this. And if you look at the full picture and try to move on it all at once, you'll either move slowly or you'll move in too many directions and lose momentum before anything sticks. And the chances are you're just going to end up giving up. The teams I see making real progress are not the ones with the most ambitious plans. They're the ones who picked something achievable, made it work, showed results, and built from there. Momentum is the strategy. So let me give you a simple approach for getting started. And this comes in 3 moves. Move 1, take the honest audit. Before you do anything else, spend an afternoon with 5 questions. This is not a formal exercise. This is just an honest conversation with yourself or your team. So question 1, where are you actually using AI systematically versus just tactically? Be honest. Most teams are still in the tactical bucket, and that's okay, but you need to know where you are before you can decide where to go. Question 2, do you have a knowledge foundation your AI can actually work from? Or are you just prompting into the void? This is the governance question. It's about what your AI knows, your buyers, your personas, your approved messaging, your compliance boundaries. Most teams haven't built this deliberately. And without it, you're working harder than you need to for outputs that are less good than they could be and maybe actually creating risk. Question 3, are your signals feeding decisions or just feeding dashboard? There's a big difference between having intent and using it to change what you do. If nothing changes based on what you're seeing, you've built a very expensive reporting tool. Question 4, when AI acts on your behalf in outreach, in scoring, in content, who owns the output? This is the human in the loop question. Chris Marion put it perfectly. Your AI produces the first draft. A human still owns what goes out. If that accountability is unclear in your organization, that's a gap that you've got to close. Question 5, is your AI system getting smarter over time, or are you starting from scratch every time? This is the learning loop question. The teams building a genuine compounding advantage are the ones connecting their AI recommendations back to outcomes, closing the loop so the system gets better. If you're not doing that, you're running in place. 5 questions, score them however you want them. You don't need a perfect score. What you just need to do is to use these questions to figure out where your gap is. And that's your starting point on the map. Let's move on to move 2. Find your quick win. Now look at the map that you've just painted using these questions and find your quick win. A quick win in this context means something specific. It shows results within 60 to 90 days. It shouldn't require a massive budget or a 6-month change management program, and it connects clearly and directly to something your leadership already cares about. Let me give you a few examples of what that might look like. If your gap is in signal intelligence, a quick win might be using a tool like Factors AI or even Chat GPT with your existing engagement data to identify which accounts are quietly accelerating right now and changing how your team prioritizes outreach this quarter. That's something that could be actionable in weeks, not months or even years. If your gap is in execution, a quick win might be building one governed prompt workflow, something like outbound sequences or follow-up emails. That reduces time to first draft and keeps a human in the review loop. Keep one motion, do it well, measure the time saved and the quality improvement. If your gap is in governance, a quick win might be building a simple knowledge foundation for one use case, not your whole AI stack, just one. For example, load it with real buyer expertise, strip out the generic marketing content and see what happens to the output quality. But by the way, that's exactly what we did with our first iteration of the HLP brain at Health Launchpad. We didn't set out just to improve content quality. We set out to make our AI smarter about buyers. And guess what? Better marketing output followed as a direct result. The key is this: don't pick the most impressive quick win. Pick the most achievable one that builds credibility. Because in most organizations, the thing that unlocks the next investment is proof that the first investment worked. Okay, move 3, build to compound. Once you have that win, the question becomes how you connect it to the next thing. This is where the 4 pillars stop being a checklist and start being a sequence, because the pillars aren't independent. They feed each other. Better signal intelligence makes orchestration more precise. Better orchestration makes execution more targeted. And better governance makes all of it more trustworthy and more consistent over time. So as you build, think about the foundation first. The teams I see pulling ahead on this aren't the ones with the most sophisticated AI tools. They're the ones who took the time to build something solid underneath, a knowledge layer that reflects genuine buyer expertise, clear rules about what AI can and can't do, and feedback loops that connect recommendations to outcomes. Govern for substance, build for learning, and the compounding advantage takes care of itself. Now, I want to give you something concrete to work with. One of the things I've been building alongside this series is a document. It's called AI Use Cases for Pipeline Growth and Healthcare Technology. And it contains 30 detailed use cases organized across all 4 of these pillars. I want to give you a quick taste of what's in there because I think it'll help you see how to connect the framework to something you can actually execute. Kind of look at these as like little mini blueprints, if you like. Pipeline pattern detection is one of the use cases. This is AI surfacing early signals of deal risk or acceleration before any of it shows up in your CRM stages or in your forecasts. Deals typically don't fail because nobody saw the warning signs. They fail because the warning signs weren't surfaced early enough to act on. Another of the use cases is AI SDRs. And this is quite a controversial one, particularly in our industry. But used in the right scenario, for example, inbound response or re-engagement of dormant pipeline, this is where the use cases help, where speed and patience matter more than nuance. And this is where things like AI SDRs can play a real meaningful role. One of the more sophisticated AI use cases is based on the one that Chris Marin has built at Inovalon, and it's called Agentic SEM Intelligence. This is paid search as a learning pipeline engine, not just a traffic channel. It's multiple agents collaborating to interpret intent, generate and test ad variation, govern claims, and get smarter with every cycle. It's pretty amazing what he's actually built. And then the next use case I'll talk about is called evidence optimization. This is about making sure that every claim you make in the market is paired with the right level of proof for the right buyer at the right stage. In healthcare, where buyers are sophisticated and scrutiny is high, this one pays off in ways that don't show up until late in the deal, where it really matters. There are 30 of these use cases. Each one follows the same format: the problem it solves, where it fits in the buying motion, what AI does versus what humans do, the tools involved, a step-by-step workflow, and the 30-day pilot plan. Trust me, you don't need to, or frankly want to read all 30. You just need to find the 2 or 3 that match where you are right now and use those as your starting point. The link to the download it is in the show notes below, and there is no registration required. Just have at it. Let me bring this to a close with 2 final thoughts. The first is, honestly, nobody has this fully cracked. We certainly don't do it at Health Launchpad. I feel pretty good about the progress that we've been making over the last 2 years, but I think that we're all pretty early on the journey. And with exception of a few examples like Inovalon, very few companies and very few marketing teams I've spoken with across this series have made real progress on this. And even the ones that have, like Inovalon, are still early on their journey. What separates the teams that are pulling ahead isn't that they have all the answers. It's that they're doing the work, asking the right questions, making smart bets, building the foundation instead of just bolting on tools. And the second is the thing I really want you to take away from this series. The teams that will pull ahead over the next 2 or 3 years won't be the ones with the best AI. They'll be the ones with the best foundations, systems that get smarter over time, messaging that stays consistent, work that buyers actually trust. In a market where AI generated noise is everywhere and buyers are getting better at recognizing it, consistency and credibility are becoming a genuine competitive advantage. And that's what this series has been about. And that's what I hope you'll go build. So a few things before you go. If you haven't already, please hit follow in your podcast app so you don't miss the upcoming episodes. And if this series has been useful, I'd really appreciate it if you shared it with a colleague. It genuinely makes a difference when you do that. The 30 use case document is linked in the show notes. Go download it, find your 2 or 3 and start there and let me know what you think. And by the way, if you want to talk through where you are on this journey, there's also a link below to book a call with me. We're still figuring out a lot of this out ourselves. So this isn't a sales call, but we've learned quite a few things and I'm always happy to compare notes. And one more thing, if this series has got you thinking about what it actually looks like when a large, sophisticated marketing organization goes all in on AI, go back and listen to my interview from last year with Nick Panay. He's the CMO of Inovalon. He's Chris Marin's boss. And that's an episode that was really one of the most inspiring things in doing this series. The scale of what they built across content, personalization, prospecting, agentic workflows is genuinely remarkable. And they're doing new stuff all the time. They're really exciting to follow. And Nick's advice to his peers is as good as anything in this series. So again, there's a link below in the show notes. So thank you so much for listening to this series. I hope it's been worth your time. And I'll see you on the next one.